All right, today we're diving into some really fascinating new research coming out of the University of Texas at Austin. And they're looking at autism spectrum disorder from a totally new angle. I mean, it all boils down to this one kind of radical question. Get this. Could shining a special light on a kid's stomach actually create positive changes in their brain? I know it sounds a little bit like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But stick with me because the science here is actually pretty incredible.
So, to really wrap our heads around how this could even work, we've got to take a step back. We need to look at this surprising piece of the autism puzzle that scientists have been piecing together for a while now, and it all has to do with the gut. So, autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is pretty common. We're talking about an estimated 36 out of every 1,000 kids in the US. But here's the thing. For a lot of these children, the story doesn't just stop at the brain. There's way more to it.
Yeah, researchers have found this really strong link between ASD and something they call gut-brain axis dysfunction. Fancy term, right? But all it really means is that the communication line between the gut and the brain is, well, it's kind of staticky. It's not working right. And this often means the bacteria in the gut are out of whack, which can actually lead to inflammation in the brain. And look at this. This chart just lays it all out there. The red triangles, those are kids with ASD. See how they're clustered way up high? That's showing a much bigger number of extremely elevated microbial metabolites. You can just think of these as like the chemical exhaust fumes from their gut bacteria. Now compare that to the blue squares, the typically developing kids. It's a totally different picture. The difference is just, wow, it's really striking.
Okay, so the big question is, how does a problem that starts in the gut make its way all the way up to the brain? Well, it turns out there's a kind of biological superhighway connecting them. Let's follow the map.
The whole journey starts with one key concept. Dysbiosis. It's just a way of saying that the huge community of tiny organisms living in your gut, your microbiome, is all out of balance. You know, maybe the bad guys are taking over, or there just aren't enough of the good guys to keep things in check.
This diagram here shows the whole chain reaction perfectly, so follow along. It kicks off on the left with that dysbiosis we just talked about. That can cause what's known as a leaky gut. Basically, the wall of the gut isn't as strong as it should be, and that lets these inflammatory molecules sneak out into the bloodstream. That's peripheral inflammation. From there, they can actually travel up and cross into the brain, and boom, you've got neuroinflammation.
All right, so if we know an imbalanced gut is a huge part of the problem, what do we do about it? Well, researchers are looking at this incredibly cool, innovative solution. And get this, it's not a drug, it's not some invasive procedure, it's light.
The official name is Photobiomodulation, or PBM for short, but really it's pretty simple. It's a therapy that uses a specific kind of light, near-infrared light, to basically supercharge our cells. It goes right for the mitochondria. You remember those from biology class, right? They're the little power plants inside every single one of our cells.
So here's where it all comes together. The big idea is that by shining this light on the abdomen, you could maybe fix the whole problem right where it starts. You could boost the energy of those gut cells, help patch up that leaky gut barrier, maybe even help rebalance the microbiome itself. And if you do all that, you could cut down on the inflammation that's making its way to the brain.
And hey, this isn't just some idea on a whiteboard. Nope. Researchers at UT Austin are actually testing this out right now in a real clinical trial. So let's see exactly how they've set this thing up.
Their goals are super clear. They're using the light therapy on two spots, the abdomen, of course, and also the prefrontal cortex, a really important part of the brain. Then they're measuring everything. They're looking at brain activity, they're analyzing stool samples to see if the gut bacteria literally change, and they're using standard surveys to track any changes in ASD symptoms.
And who's taking part? Well, they're focusing specifically on kids between 4 and 11 years old who've been diagnosed with level 1 or 2 ASD.
The plan for the families is actually pretty simple. They come in for a first visit to get everything assessed and learn how to use the device. Then, the families do the treatment themselves, every day at home for 2 months. After that, they come back for a final visit to collect all the data and see what's changed.
And just to be clear, this is a serious, legit study. It's not some fly-by-night operation. It's officially registered on clinicaltrials.gov. That's the US government's database. This means the whole thing is transparent and has to meet really high scientific standards.
Okay, let's pull back for a second. Why are we talking about this one study? What's the bigger picture here? What could this actually mean down the road?
Well, this is a big deal for a few reasons.
First, it could be a totally new, non-invasive, and safe way to help kids with ASD. That's huge. Second, it's paving the way for bigger studies and maybe even future therapies. And third, it's connecting two areas of science that are incredibly important: gut microbiome research and therapies for conditions like autism. It's building that bridge.
I mean, the researchers themselves put it perfectly. They said their work is all about potentially bridging the gap between microbiota research and neurodevelopmental therapies. It's literally about connecting the dots, you know? And that could change everything.
So, this all leaves us with a pretty mind-bending question, doesn't it? For so long, when we wanted to understand the brain, we only looked at, well, the brain. But what if a huge piece of the puzzle, a major key to brain health, hasn't been in the head at all? What if it's been hiding in our gut this whole time?